Welcome to My High Thoughts. I am your host, Cassandra.
And I am your other host, who's still American, Nicole.
Sorry. Welcome to another lovely, lovely episode this Sunday.
Lovely.
What are we talking about today, Nicole?
So today, what we're going to talk about is jobs, but not really the actual working of the job, but the image and the self-value that we seem to attach to job titles. And exactly why that is. And how we as Americans seem to be uniquely involved in that. So, shall we begin?
We shall. We put a lot of stress on job titles, and you tell someone you're working at McDonald's, and they're like, I'm sorry, why don't you get a real job, you know? And, Nicole?
Well, the whole reason I started thinking about this is because I actually saw an interview, like, compilation thing with people around the world talking about jobs, and talking about... Or no, they weren't talking about jobs. They were talking about what they think of Americans. They were talking to people from all different places in the world.
Okay.
And kind of what they think of when they think of Americans. And one of the things that kept coming up from all these different countries is, why are they so obsessed with the question, what do you do? And how that's asked within the first, 30 seconds of meeting an American. It's, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. How are you? It's nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? It's like...
The second question out of the gate.
It's fast.
Yeah.
And this throws off the rest of the world, I guess. Like, it's very normal to us. It's just how we do things. But in other parts of the world, they're like, what the fuck are you asking me that for?
Rude?
Yeah, well, and they can sense that there's, like... a valuing of that person going on along with that question, and that's the disturbing part, is because if you answer that wrong, then you're perceived to be less important, less intelligent, less whatever, or more important. Like they could feel the reaction to their answer to that, and it changing the way that they were being talked to.
I'm a neurosurgeon versus...
Oh, really?
Versus... meter maid, Pardon me while I go grab something. Continue, Nicole.
Okay. Oh, this feels weird, just doing it by myself. Okay, so I guess since it's just me, and here I'll talk a little bit about my own job history, because I feel like I'm in a unique position to kind of comment on the spectrum of reactions that people have, because I've worked jobs that people think are really cool, and I've worked jobs that people think are, like, literally the scum of the earth, a la meter maid, like Cassandra just said. So, I think I've...
Give them the proper term of meter maid.
Well, it depends, and I think that's why people have a hard time with it, because Pennsylvania is, like, famous for having the first, like, true people dedicated to parking laws, and they're called parking authority. So that's a term that people kind of recognize.
Okay. That's kind of the same as your title.
It's pretty much the same. We are called right-of-way enforcement, technically, and people don't know what that means. And right-of-way just means streets and public right-of-way. But people don't know what that means. So what I usually say is I'm parking enforcement instead of right-of-way enforcement. But yeah, it's pretty much all the same thing. And then, of course, there's that fucking Beatles song, the Meter Maid thing.
I've never heard this song.
It's Rita something or other Meter Maid.
Okay.
It's just a song where they are talking about a girl who's a meter maid. And so, and I think that, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's where that term came from, was that song. And so that's what people like to call us, that's kind of the little derogatory way to refer to us, fucking meter maid. So that's how people recognize us. And when you call yourself something else, they actually, like, laugh and they're like, you mean a meter maid? Like, they, like, push back.
Like you clean meters.
Anyway, that is the job that I have now, and I must say that I've worked in food service. I've worked a lot of, not glorious jobs, and I have felt that, but I've never felt anything like what I feel working as a meter maid. Like, holy disrespect. Like, I am the scum of the earth. And, that affects you, of course, but it's really weird for me because it's juxtaposed with the job I just came from, which was 911 dispatcher, which is complete opposite end of the spectrum. You tell someone you're a police dispatcher or a 911 operator, and their eyes light up. It's like, what?
Wow.
Whoa, really?
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. You must be smart. You must hear so much stuff.
I could never.
You save lives. Oh my God. Like, it's just the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And they light up versus parking enforcement. You mean a fucking meter maid? Like, and it's just so different. And I've had a lot of jobs that have actually been good. I was a martial arts instructor. That's another one that people are like, whoa, cool. I'm an author. People are like, whoa, cool, you know? So I've had a lot of cool ones. So now to have that history and then go to meter maid, I'm like, whoa, like, this is weird. Like, I feel fundamentally different in how I'm perceived by the world. And so now I'm just very interested in that whole concept of how we regard each other as more or lesser based on just what you do. You know, I haven't changed. I'm no different.
Yeah. It also leaves you to like, defend your decision. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to sit there and explain to everyone why you did it, this and that. Mm-hmm. I made an entire video showing my mom what I do, because I trim marijuana plants. And I made an entire video being like, she's like, you just sit there and smoke pot all day, you loser, you know? And I'm like, no. Every plant is tagged and monitored. They know where all the weights are going. They know if any sort of weight just disappears, you know? We we're gardeners, you know? And, and I put it all out. I named all the celebrities who've come through. Boom! Tone change. She's like, all right, you taught me, you know? But it sucks that you have to be put in this position where, you know, they're like, explain it to me.
Well, yeah, and
validate yourself to me.
Exactly, validate yourself. And now get yourself to a point where I can respect you again. Like, I'm still going to judge you on your job title regardless, but you can try to convince me your job title's not as bad as I initially think it is. I'm still going to decide based on what you do.
Can you just be happy that I'm handling my shit and making money? Like, no.
You've got a little ash. Let me help you. There you
Thanks.
go. But yeah, I think yours is interesting as well because you're in kind of a unique position where it's dependent on the person. Some people hear it and think it's cool. They're like, oh, sweet, you work with pot all day?
That's true.
And then you've also got people who are like, oh my God, you fucking pothead. You know, so you get both out of the same job. That's kind of unique.
Right. I ain't no fucking pothead. Bitch.
Oh man, we could do a whole one on that too, just on weed and the perceptions around people who smoke weed. And, yeah. Another time.
It could just be a perception podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
But whatever. Let's continue.
We'll just continue for now and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, so I mean, basically Americans seem to be more hung up on job titles than the rest of the world. And like, I mean, let's just think about what, because I mean, I do understand to a point, because when you hear a job, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying there are certain jobs that you realize only smart people can do. If someone's a fucking astrophysicist, it tells you they're smart. So it's not just I'm judging your job, it's I just learned that you're very intelligent, and I respect that.
Book smart, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, maybe these lower class, more jobs is a lot more street smart.
Right. Or you hear that someone's an artist or a musician or whatever. You're like, okay, now I know you're talented and I respect that.
Now I know you're an artist, you know.
So yeah, like you have to have a job that conveys some other quality that I find admirable. It's not necessarily the job, it's the what does that tell me about you? Yeah. And when your job is McDonald's, it doesn't tell me anything that I value.
Right. And why are we so hung up on valuing somebody on what they do for a living? Who cares? If they're getting by and they're doing their thing. I think the only way it matters is if you're trying to start a relationship with that person. Because if you're like, well, what do you do? Because if you're like a pilot and you're always going to be gone and flying everywhere, maybe I'm not into that.
Maybe, yeah. I think that, is kind of... not super unique. There's a handful of jobs that affect it, but there's more I think that probably don't matter. But I think the problem is that we have used what do you do as a way of finding out information about that person. Is what I'm saying. So it's like I'm trying to use your job. Like, does it require intelligence? Now I know you're smart. Does it require creativity? Now I know you're creative. But it's like, is there, just because someone works at McDonald's doesn't mean they're not smart or not creative. Mm-hmm. It just means that I didn't find that out by learning their job. Mm-hmm. Their job as a McDonald's person doesn't demand that they're super smart.
Can I just say, McDonald's was one of the hardest jobs I ever had. Like, I was a security guard, and I worked as a dog sitter for a while doing the two. And then I got fired from, that's another story. But the only job I could find was McDonald's. And oh my Jesus, you have to smell burger farts all day. You're multitasking like crazy. Do not have ADHD and work in the drive-thru because it's impossible.
Yeah.
Holy crap. They're sitting there and they're all like taking one person's order while trying to like make change for this person. And this person's like, hey, can I have this sauce and this whatever? And this person's like, Big Mac, fries, why don't you Mac? You know? Yeah, and then punching in their order at the same time. You're making change. That was my worst nightmare. Worst nightmare. You had to do so many things so quickly, and people fuck with you all the time. But yeah, one of the hardest freaking jobs ever.
Right. And I don't mean to disrespect any particular profession. I keep using McDonald's because it's one of the common ones that people bash, but I don't mean to pick on anyone specifically. But my point really is just that we're using that question, what do you do, as a way of saying, what are you good at? And there's a better way to ask that, because just because they answer one way, that doesn't mean that that's truly who they are. A lot of people have a need to get by, and I think that's admirable too. I think it's actually maybe even more admirable to slog through a job you fucking hate because you've got a family or whatever. That's hard. It's hard to go to a job you fucking hate
every day
and be disrespected and treated like shit all the time. Like, that takes a strong person. So if you tell me that you work at McDonald's, maybe I don't think, oh my God, they're smart, or oh my God, they're innovative, or whatever. I'm thinking, oh my God, they're strong.
Right, like that bitch has got stamina.
Yeah.
She can stand on her feet all day. Dang.
Yeah. I've got, self-control too, because I know they get mistreated. But not everyone knows that because they haven't worked those types of jobs.
Right,
but wouldn't it be so much better if, instead of trying to find out what you're good at by asking what you do, if you just found a way to ask, what are you good at? Mm-hmm. What are better questions we could ask? Because I think when people say, what do you do, what they're trying to find out is, what do you like? What do you care about? What are you good at? What are your skills? That's what we're trying to ask when we ask that question. But that question doesn't really accomplish that. So what are better ways to ask someone what you're trying to ask them?
Maybe one of the first things I asked you.
Hopes, fears, dreams, regrets, whatever it is. Just like straight, like not even full sentences. Just go.
Hopes, dreams, desires.
Yeah, people don't feel comfortable asking people such personal things up front, though, when you're meeting someone. Like, you and I instantly had a connection. Mm-hmm. Typically, though, just a perfect stranger, I don't think a lot of people would feel comfortable doing that.
I don't know. I feel a lot of people want that to happen.
I agree.
But no one ever really does it.
Because you feel like you're invading. You don't feel like that's welcome. Like, even if you want to know that about someone, it's kind of rude to just immediately, like, dig into personal shit, Mm-hmm. Even though I think you're right that more people want that than don't.
Right. So what would be good small talk that doesn't include
your job?
Your job.
I mean, I think this is another cliche. What do you do for fun? People hate that question, but that's another attempt to say, what do you care about? What are you interested in? What are your skills? What are your hobbies? Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe you could just... I mean, is it too forward or rude to just say what... I mean, not what are your skills, because that's kind of evaluating them. Like, if you don't have anything, I care less about you, and that's not fair. Mm-hmm. What do you care about? What are your passions? Mm-hmm. That's a good one. That can't really go wrong. What are your passions? Mm-hmm. I think that's the best I can do off the top of my head.
Yeah, because that's what really matters to you. You can be working at a job you freaking hate. You're like, I don't want this thing. That's the only thing I could fucking find.
Yeah. Because you can also ask someone, what do you want for yourself? What are your goals?
Yeah, what are your goals in life? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are your passions? What are your goals?
I just feel like even with what are your goals, it turns into kind of almost an interrogative situation. Like, what are you doing? Like,
what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, prove to me that you're a worthwhile person.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people kind of don't have goals nowadays. I'm kind of finding out.
It's so hard to just exist that that's your goal.
Boom! Boom! Should just drop the atom bomb from the sky. It is so hard just to exist that we don't even have room for passions.
Yeah, we're like, fuck, my goal is to pay the electric bill. Like, which is why I work at McDonald's. Like, that, and that's it. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm fucking sleeping or crying.
It's so true, though. What were you saying about that someone was talking about a living wage?
Oh. Universal basic income is the term I've heard. And basically the concept, if you haven't heard it, the whole thing came about, it started to be talked about because there's this big fear that all this innovation and technology and automation that's happening is going to take away so many jobs that unemployment's going to go through the roof and things are just going to go completely to shit. There's just not going to be enough jobs for how many people there are. And that it's going to be a substantial enough number of people that lose their jobs that we're going to have to account for how these people get by. And the way to do that is universal basic income, meaning that everybody gets a universal basic income. And it, like, I don't know what the number would be, but the concept would be that it's enough to feed you and shelter you. And just to, like, account for basics, you know, you have a roof and you can eat. You're going to survive. It's enough to keep you alive. And that's it. And then if you want to do better than that, as most people do, you're still going to have to work or do something, you know? Like, it's not designed to make you a baller without doing anything. It's just designed to keep you alive. And the concept is that, one, it'll help us cope with the technology boom, and two, that people will then be able to pursue other careers that they currently can't pursue because they're so concerned with just keeping in the grind. They're just doing what they have to do. But that having that basic income will give you enough breathing room that people can start going after things that they truly want to do. They can start their businesses. They can learn that thing that they didn't have time to go to school for. They can put their time into art. Like, whatever it's going to be.
Invent something new.
Yeah. They now have the freedom and the room to pursue something they actually give a fuck about. Because they're not panicked they can't survive. So that's the thought. And I guess in 2020 there's some guy, I can't remember his name, so I'm sorry, but there's some guy who's running for president who's the big major advocate of this. And it's unlikely that he'll get in or that this will happen anytime soon. But as a concept, I think it's interesting.
It is interesting. I kind of wonder where that money's going to come from.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the huge question that's going to just stall it at the gate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Shut down the space program and put it all into that?
No, you know what I think, actually, is I think that the problem solves itself. Because the reason you need universal income, right, is because people don't need employees anymore. So all those companies that were paying however many employees aren't doing that anymore. Mm. So now that money, instead of going to employees' paychecks, is just going to universal basic income.
Ooh, I like that.
You know, so, I mean, that's one thought that I had.
Yeah, and that could even just be based off of their own income.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right, yeah, and it's based... Yeah, exactly, because if you would have had 2 employees, you're not going to have to behave as if you're supplementing 100 people's universal basic income. You know, you're supplementing 2 people's. The amount of people that you replaced, that's how many people you have to account for in universal basic income.
I like it.
But does that fuck over the business person? Because, yeah, they're not paying employees, but they do pay for the equipment that's replacing them.
Yeah. Still, it's more efficient, more reliable.
Yeah. More efficient, more reliable, but still you have to buy the stuff and you have to keep it up and whatever, you know.
That's true.
And the entire point of them doing that was to save money, and now you're saying, well, no, you got to pay it anyway.
That's true. Yeah. Might have to just toss that one out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where else it would come from other than... I honestly think that we need to just make people pay for less.
Pay for less?
Yeah, like food should be free. You know, not like every food forever, like you're not eating at a fucking 5-star restaurant every night, but like...
I think fresh produce should be free.
Yeah. Exactly, like just survival shit.
Right, yeah. And if you want cookies or whatever, it's kind of like WIC or welfare or whatever, you know, how you can only buy certain things.
Yeah, like food stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like certain basic food is free. We don't need to charge people for that. We have more than enough food. And here's the thing is that problem is so far from being fucking solved because we can't even agree to feed starving people.
I think they just need to decriminalize farming. And I say this because there have been raids on farms.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. But I remember when I first started working in the marijuana industry, you know, somebody posted up a video. And it was a long video of their farm getting raided. Like tanks, like freaking assault rifles and stuff like that. And they're coming out in full like SWAT gear almost, you know? And it's like, I'm growing vegetables. Mm-hmm. Who cares?
Did they think they were growing pot?
I don't know. I don't know what the deal was, but they were, you know, people from around them came up and they're like, what the hell are you even doing? You know, and they're showing the whole property, you know, they're showing the whole property as they raid it and everything. Didn't matter. They all got swept up, arrested, everything. And it's kind of like the rainwater thing. You're not allowed to collect frickin' rainwater.
Right, exactly. That's weird. And it's all profit oriented. So I think that you could do some things to control that and say, like, look, no, you know, as an American or as any person in a free country, you know, or capitalist country, yes, you have the right to pursue wealth and growth and whatever, but there are certain things that are off limits, and food is one of them, because it's not fair to control people's survival. That's a right.
Yeah, that is a right.
So there's things that are not fair game, and fucking rainwater should absolutely be one. Right. And basic food should be one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just saw an article today about, like, what can we do because somebody in Canada, their son died because the romaine lettuce.
Oh, that whole
E. coli.
E. coli thing.
Let me tell you where this E. coli is coming from, okay? It is, basically, the area is just literally a bunch of crap. Cow crap, just sprays onto the plants, doesn't get cleaned off, whatever, you eat it. E. coli's and shit, and it's basically like the manure, instead of staying down and on the ground or whatever, it gets sprayed all over the fucking plants and shit like that.
I've heard that too.
And a lot of these kind of farms are almost swamp-like, and they're so massive they don't care. They're just like, oh, just spray it, get it all over with, you know, they're not managing it, and we just need to be allowed to have a lot of smaller farms.
Right. How do those farms make money, though? Because if you say, okay, food's going to be free, what's the incentive for anyone to make that food if they're not getting paid?
But they're getting it free because other people are paying for it.
Who's paying for it?
Exactly. Everybody just needs to go back and grow their own shit and take over your own shit, okay?
You know, that's great in theory, but where is everyone growing this? No one has land.
I know, and that's why there's too many fucking people.
There's too many people. No one has any room to grow all their shit.
You know, we do have plenty of room. What we need to do is expand people.
That's true. We are all concentrated because there is so much land out there that is untouched. Because we're city dwellers, so we go with the sky rises and the dense population and everything. And meanwhile, there's huge amounts of countryside that's open. But we don't like that. We don't want to be all by ourselves in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right, you have to start a community all over again. You need your doctors, you need your butchers, you need your farmers, you need your craftsmen, you know, you need all of these things to build another community. And it's a thing of convenience. The city has everything you ever need, so just stay there.
Right. You know, even more than that, you know, I know some people, this is a spectrum, because some people like the country more, some people like the city more. So as a person who really, truly loves big city life, I can say that it's not even just that. It's not even just basic needs. Like, yeah, I could get by as long as I've got a decent hospital that I trust and a fucking grocery store, but I wouldn't be happy. I would still prefer the city because I'm not just looking for basic needs. I'm also looking for culture. I'm looking for interaction. I'm looking for weirdness. I'm looking for art. I'm looking for concerts. I'm looking for poetry slams. I'm looking for all this shit that simply does not exist in small communities.
Yeah. But if we're forced to expand, like if we were like not allowed to build a certain amount of housing within a city or whatever, and we're like, okay, that's done. It's going to force people to move out, and then we will have all that stuff everywhere else.
Will we though? Because we'll all be spread so thin that like you only have that if you happen to live next to those people, but you won't have a variety of everything because we're all spread out.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Especially if, so say like your population was like 100,000 or whatever, you know, they're like, okay, we'll just like push 25,000 people out this way. And you just kind of keep pushing out. And so it'll still be condensed to just like a tiny area, you know, so you will have a lot of people out and, you know, and you just keep going section by section instead of being like, here, I'm going to drop you here in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to drop you here in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Just kind of gradually shift everybody out, a wave of people. That's kind of how it works already. But
yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing about that is I feel like you're right. So I don't mean to like push back on you too hard because I think you're right that that's the future. But I also represent that voice of people that's like, I'm not really into that.
Into what?
Into smaller communities, even if it's a bigger, smaller community. I don't even like, you know, Parker, which has, you know, thousands of people. You know, it's got the type of population you're talking about. I don't know the exact number, but it's big. It's not small anymore. And it still disgusts me.
But, you know, it might also be the same kind of people trying to be in a smaller community versus the city life.
Yeah.
And if we're all forced to do this kind of thing, you know, I think it's going to mix it up more instead of just being all like, you know, a certain kind of person just wants to be in the middle of nowhere, a certain kind of person wants to live in this part, you know.
Well, and I think actually you just like kind of sparked something for me a little bit, which is that there would be different types of community. So you, as a person like me who's really into the arts and who really wants to see kind of the strange and the gritty and all that, like you would just be in that kind of community. And maybe it would only be a 25,000 person city or whatever, but they would all be those types of people. So you would still have that fulfillment. Versus right now, the only people that are in smaller communities like that, they're all kind of the same sort of suburban type. So if you took city people and put them in a suburb, would that suburb then feel more big city?
Yeah, I guess.
Because right now the problem is that all the progressives and all the artists all want to be in the major cities.
Well, yeah, exactly. So if you're just forced to do it, whatever, you know, yeah, you're going to have a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I totally think there should be a housing cap on every, like, city or town or whatever.
It's like, stop building shit. You've got enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because parking becomes an issue, traffic becomes an issue, all of this shit becomes an issue. And so it's just like, all right, we've got too many people, expand.
Oh my God, can I go on a tangent?
Yes.
Okay, so since we talked a little bit earlier about my job, parking enforcement, right-of-way enforcement, meter maid, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I am privy to some insider knowledge. And I'm going to share it with you because I don't give a fuck.
Well, this pertains to Denver anyway.
Yeah, Denver. I think that this applies to many more cities, but I can't tell you specifically which ones yes and which ones no. But in general, I do believe this is the way the country is going. Here is what is happening with Denver parking. Back in the day, if you were going to build something, whether it was a business or an apartment complex or whatever, based on your capacity of people that were going to be in that building, you had to offer a certain amount of parking. And that was a requirement. That is still a requirement. But over the years, the number of parking per people you expect to be in your building is going down and down and down. So now, like back when, you know, like back in the day, if you expected to have, if you made an apartment complex and 100 people are going to live there, you need 100 parking spaces. That's the way it used to be. Now, that same apartment complex that's going to have 100 people, you need to offer 10 parking spaces.
That's it?
I don't know if that's exact. But
well,
yeah,
that's
it's gone way, way down.
It was kind of like the condo we lived in. How many units were in there? But there was only like 4 parking spots.
Exactly. And that number's going down and down and down. And they are openly talking about this and saying, we want to force people to use public transportation. And they're not mincing words about that. They're saying literally we are forcing people to stop fucking driving.
My mind just got blown.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not worth it, and they can't park. And if they do park, they're going to have to pay fucking $35 to $40 for a parking lot. And you're making it, you're not saying you can't have a car, because people have freedom and whatever, but you're making damn sure it's not worth it. And by doing that, by making it financially impossible, you're forcing people to quit driving.
Now, are they forcing people to do it to force gain, like financial gain in public transportation, or is it to like let up on traffic and to make it like a safer area?
There's a few theories on this as well. So the city is going to tell you the version that makes them look the best, and that is, we're trying to save the planet. Mm-hmm. Cars are bad. Mm-hmm. Use public transportation. So that makes them look great, right? Oh, we're green. We care. Emissions, carbon. We're progressive. We're aware, you know? Really what's going on, though, beneath the scenes? I don't know. They're taking away people's independence in a way. Like if you get into some shit and you can't get in your car and leave.
That's true.
I don't feel comfortable with that.
That's almost like a gun argument.
Yeah, it almost is. Because
I have a right to my car.
Yeah. So it's like, it's weird because it's like on the one side you can get down with it. You're like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're going to cut down on this car issue. Because when you think about the planet and everything that's going on, it's like, we need to do something drastic now.
Yeah.
So it's like, is that what this is? Is this just a drastic thing that they're doing that they're gonna help? And you can almost be like, yeah, I'm down. But then on the flip side of that, you can also be like, you're literally forcing me not to fucking drive. Who are you to do that? Fuck you.
Right.
So it's like, it's weird because I see both sides and I don't even really know how I feel about it, but I think it's interesting that they're making a concentrated, admitted effort to force people not to drive.
That's really interesting. Man. Well, I don't know where to go from there. If you have some other...
That was a tangent. That's not even what we were talking about. But you got me all excited.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What were we originally talking? Oh, jobs.
Jobs,
Yeah. And I think really what we're getting at when we talk about that is just valuing of human beings. Are you worth more or worth less based on what you can do for us?
Yeah, worth and respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so weird to have someone you barely know be like, and you make money at that? Like,
yeah, that's
rude! What the fuck?
Well, and it's this weird thing, too, because it's like, machines can do more and more, so it's like, people who are just laborers are getting pushed out, because it's like, well, you don't really have anything other than a body that you can make move shit. Like, you are no better than anyone. Like, anyone could do that. And that's a really pessimistic fucking attitude about it. But here's the other side of that argument for me, which is that, okay, so fine. So all the labor jobs and all the jobs that can be done with machines are gone, and you better have a skill. But we're also in the time where fucking Instagram butt models are making millions of dollars. How is that a fucking skill? But that's what is rising. So labor is being cut out by machines, and what is coming out the other side is butt models.
Is influencers. Literally people who are living the life you wish you lived.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
That's all they do.
Oh my God.
And so how is that more valuable than the person who digs trenches? You know what I mean? Like, how is that more of a skill than that person?
No, it's like a freaking baby hang in there poster, essentially. Why are they making more money? God. Oh.
Man. So let's say that you have no skills.
Okay.
You're not good at anything.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make you less valuable of a person?
Yes.
We should care about you less.
People will. It's not a matter of should they just will.
But let's go to should. Because really that's at the heart of what do you do, is me deciding if I should care about you or not.
I'll tell you when it does matter, is if everything did go to small communities. Mm-hmm. If the world did change and we started spreading out as small communities and they're like, we need to make sure we have this in our community. Mm-hmm. And you can't bring anything to it.
So you're not allowed?
Maybe you're just seen as a consumer then?
You're not giving anything, you're only consuming.
Yeah.
And people don't like that.
You're the people being sold to.
Well,
Oh my god, I'm having all of this. I'm like, is this what life is? Really? This is what's happening right now. I'm the consumer.
we're all the consumers, though.
Well,
like, even...
Yeah, we really are all the consumers.
Well, and if you think about it, the people that are talented and whatever, the rich people, the stars, the celebrities, they're consuming more than anybody.
I don't know, man. It's like, what if you have no skill? What do you fucking... I don't know. Then you just die, essentially, you know?
Well, first off, it's very rare that anyone has no skills. But...
Yeah, you
it happens,
just have to
right?
figure it out.
You have to find out what your skill is, which is the appeal of universal basic income, is it gives people the room to do that. So these people, we're looking at them and we're like, oh, you have no skills. They probably don't. They just haven't had the time to discover their skills.
Can I also say that media needs to cover way more job fields?
Yeah, right?
Because I had no idea that you could make a living playing with baby animals and doing cat cafes and
Yeah.
just like a ton of stuff I didn't know you could do until I was like an adult and eventually saw it on TV or some documentary or whatever, and I'm like, you can do that? You know, you really can make a living out of everything or what you love. And like, and I know this sounds dumb, but like, I had a passion for essentially making music videos. And it didn't take me until I was like in my early 20s to realize, make music videos. I'm like, I'm going to have to make movies because you think film,
Right.
you have to make movies. And
Film
I'm like,
means movies, yeah.
right, no, I can exclusively do music videos.
Right.
And I feel like you just kind of need to just throw more things in there.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right, because I actually had the exact same experience. I was writing novels back to back, like, with dedication, for years before it occurred to me that I could be a writer. I'm serious.
What?
Like, I'm serious.
Wow.
Yes. I'm, like, in school writing a novel in the back of class being like, fuck, what am I going to do for a living? Like, literally, that was my life for years.
Wow.
You know, and then I was like, oh, wait, that is a profession. And that's a well-known one.
Yeah.
But it's, like, perceived as being so impossible. It's like saying you're going to be a musician, you know? It's like, well, you can't actually do that.
Right, and that has shattered for me recently, you know, being a musician. Especially because, you know, I'm a videographer, and that's where it started. You know, going to all of these musicians' gigs, you know, I'm like, these are just random people. This person was good at guitar, this guy was good at drums. They were like, oh yeah, I kind of like the same kind of music, and they just kind of got together one day, and they were like, yeah, this sounds pretty good. And they just went and, like, bought out some time at a venue and played there. That's it. They bought time at a venue and played there. That's all you have to do. I could do that right now if I want to.
You could do that right now. You know what I think, too, is that we really need to broaden our definition of success. Because right now, I feel like the reason we all think that we'll never make it as musicians or authors or, you know, anything artistic, you know, is because success is defined as fucking Lady Gaga. And yes, there's only a fucking handful of them.
Tons of money, tons of fans.
Yeah, but you can get by way short of that. You know, so if you want to be a musician, you know, are you gonna fucking be mega stars? Yeah, okay, admittedly, the odds are against that. But could you get by? Probably. You know, especially if you're, like, passionate enough about it that you're cool with living with roommates and traveling and doing what it takes and living that life. Like, if,
actually going for it and doing it.
Committing and really going after it. And yes, maybe you'll be, you know, kind of poor for a while, you know, and you'll have to weigh if you love it enough to accept that or not. But if you do, that's a legitimate path. And I think that we just don't even think that that's a legitimate path because we're like, well, no, it's only legitimate if you could be successful. And you're only successful if you're rich.
Right. I don't know, man. I think success is just making your goal.
Right.
And we just keep making more and more goals for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you can hit each one of those goals, that's a success right there. We are so successful in life. We've done so many. I learned how to tie my shoes. I learned how to tie my shoes when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, that was a success. And I think we just need to get a lot more generous with our wins in life.
Well, I think you're right. And I think it's a fundamental human need to have goals. But I think the part that we fuck up is the second that we have a success, we make a new goal. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's necessary. It keeps us driven. It keeps us feeling like we have a purpose.
Keeps us evolving.
Yeah, it does. So it's a good thing to always have a new goal, but it's a bad thing to forget the previous goal.
Yeah, that you made it. All your previous successes.
You did something. Because I've had this as an author. Because really my big goal, my overall goal, I mean, I guess the biggest goal was to be, you know, Lady Gaga famous, like the big superstar thing. But short of that, my most important goal was to be able to make it as a writer, to live on my income as a writer, to have that be my primary job. That is how I've always defined success. And it's important to know how you define success, because it might be different for you. But for me, that's what it was. I want to pay the bills with writing. And that's great to have the big goal, and then you condense it down to a bunch of smaller goals. So it was finish a book, get a publishing contract, get a big publisher, get an agent, get, you know,
awards,
get such and such in sales. There's a bunch of different little steps in there. And while it's good to have the overarching goal, and it's good to have a bunch of little goals, and it's good to change your goals once you achieve other goals, we can't forget what we actually have done, because I'm still sitting here being like, oh my God, I'm fucking 29 and I can't pay my bills with writing. I'm a failure. Wait. Okay, like, so you're not to your complete goal yet, but wait. In between fucking where you started and this I'm a failure feeling now, what did you do? You wrote 7 books. Jesus. You got 4 of them published. You won a handful of awards. You went on, like, fucking tours. You did podcasts. You did interviews. You were in magazines. Like, you got such and such reviews. You made money. Like, maybe you didn't live on it yet, but you made fucking money. You know, like, that first time you get paid for your art.
Yeah, you got, like, 100 followers.
Yeah, you got 100 followers. Whatever it may be. Yeah. Like, there were, like, dozens of successes in there.
Absolutely.
And yet all we see is, I'm not paying the bills with it yet, therefore I failed.
Right. Yeah, and like my goal with video, totally different. You know? I love it when the people just love it, you know? That's basically it. I want them to be happy with the product and to feel like fucking rock stars and to be all like, look at my band kicking ass, you know? Really, they're just like, and then I come up with my camera and I'm like, and they look like they're, you know? So it's great. It's great to just lift their spirits, make them be seen, you know? I love that. And the end product is always my goal, you know, like their happiness in being seen and seeing the completion of the project is usually my goal. I'm just like, God, yeah, that's the sweet spot for me.
See, and it's different, and it's beautiful that it's different. It's okay that it's different. And that's why goal setting is so emphasized and important, is because you need to know what you want out of it.
Right. And you know what? I think that's why we're a good match, is because you think about, like, the literal money, can this carry us through aspect. And I'm thinking of it more of, like, on a spiritually positive, influential thing, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, I want to make sure we're doing good work here, you know? Right. Lifting other people up with us.
Well, see, and that, to me, makes me just feel like dirt. Because I'm like, yours is so much better.
Well, don't, because we're a team.
Right.
So we're going to get both done, you know, you're going to make sure we're cared for, and I'm going to make sure they're cared for, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, I guess I always equated, and this is very much a victim of a capitalist society type of way of thinking, but I've always thought that, hey, you know you're a good artist when you're being paid for it. And you're being paid for it in a way that you can actually get by.
Right.
That means you're good. That means you've made it. That means you are adding value to people's lives. They'll pay you for it. And very capitalist, but that's kind of the world I grew up in. And so I've always used that as a gauge of, you know, like, this publisher just wants to contract me with no money. This publisher wants to give me a $500 advance. I really want to be in a world where I get, you know, a 6-figure advance, you know, like, and I'm thinking of it and I'm equating my talent with numbers, which is a really, like, damaging way to think, but it's also practical.
Yeah, it is practical.
And it's like, it's all about what do you want out of life? Because it's like, for me, it's been such an important thing for me to live as an artist. Like, I don't want to go to a job I hate. And that's been a central thing in my life, is how do I get out of that? How do I get rid of the need to do a job I don't want to do?
The only thing that sucks is doing a job that you don't want to do equates to people being like, eh,
Yeah.
boo, status.
Yeah.
You're invaluable.
Wait, invaluable's a good thing. You mean not valuable?
Invaluable?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
invaluable is like, oh, there's no putting a number on how valuable you are.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
what would you say?
You're
correct.
not valuable, I guess.
Unvaluable?
I don't think that's a word. Maybe it is.
I don't know. Sorry, side tone. Continue.
Anyway. No, I mean, it's all a balance, and admittedly, my view is a little bit more selfish. Mine is about how do I get by and how do I live the way I want to live. And
But you're
yours
going to
is-
live.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that my ass would stay homeless. And, you know, I'd be like, yeah, I'm happy doing this, whatever. You know, you make sure you have a roof over your head, that you're taken care of, that your future is planned out. You're going to have a retirement fund. Meanwhile, I'm like, how do you do that? I guess I'll never know. You know?
And it's so funny because even as you talk and even as you make good points, I'm like still in this world where I'm like, why have we romanticized it so much to be the starving artist? Because
either. Why have we romanticized either? I think there's value in both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so much more romanticized to be the way you are, because I'm like hearing you talk and I'm like, oh my god, that's what it means to be an artist. You're not an artist, you're a fucking capitalist.
You're an artist that has different goals, you know? You're like, I want to make sure I'm taken care of, and, you know, you have, like, the basic life thing down, like, you know, you're making sure your structure's solid. Whereas a lot of people nowadays don't think about that. They're thinking about temporary happiness. Mm.
You know, you actually just sparked a side note. We'll go down another tangent now. We're getting kind of lost, but let's just roll with it. I saw this thing that was talking about how we've got, like, this idea that good art comes from suffering.
That good art comes from suffering?
Yes, like, the more you suffer,
yeah.
the better your art is. Uh-huh. And there's even, like, this thing that's, like, the tragic clown or whatever, which is the artist that makes money off of exploiting their own suffering, their own misfortunes. And the worse your life is, the better you can be, because people love to hear that. And how it's just kind of damaging and whatever, but, like, I don't know, I think it's true that we value hearing dark stories, because we don't hear them every day, so we're like, what? Tell me more, that's so heavy.
Especially as a kid.
Yeah.
Because everything is just like, hey, P's and Q's and polite and whatever, and then you're like, what? Villains?
Well, and because of that, you think that these things that you're feeling, because you feel a full spectrum as a child, but you're only exposed to the happy, like, super sanitized version of life.
Right.
But as you're getting older, you're feeling there are other things.
Yeah, you're like, man, I feel dark inside, you know? Everyone is kind of trying to go in denial, or if they've already balanced their life out, and you haven't figured that out yet. So you're feeling all this dark stuff, and then you start, like, wanting to see dark stuff. You're like, oh, that exists? Someone outside of me has dark stuff happening to them?
Exactly. You don't know it's a thing. And I think it comes from initially in a good place. You want to shelter children as long as you can. You want to keep the world happy as long as you can. But everyone's got an internal world. So you don't know as a parent or as a teacher or as a whatever, you don't know at what point that child starts experiencing darker things. a sadness, a yearning, a pain, or whatever. You don't know when that begins in this tiny little human. And especially as adults, we see a tiny little human and we're like, they don't feel like that. We don't
realize, they're certainly not going to remember it.
Yeah, you don't realize how soon the human condition becomes what it is, which is this mixed bag of happiness and sadness and tragedy and all that stuff, You don't realize how quickly that happens. So you think you're protecting this little itty-bitty person from everything that's dark in the world, but really what you're doing is making them feel isolated. Like what they're feeling is weird. Which is why when they discover that it's not weird, other people do feel this way, you latch onto it. And you're like, and then you have this fascination with the dark stuff. And I think that's why we prize dark art. It's because we see it, and that's usually the first place we see it.
Do you think that we should have, like, an adolescent just dark thing?
Yeah.
Maybe with just media-wise or whatever. Yeah. Just stuff that they can cling on to, but then also kind of give a message like, hey, stuff's gonna turn out okay. And...
Right. Yeah, I do. I think that we need to make it, like, less puppies and flowers. And I do understand how that came from, like, a good place.
You're like, not the children.
Yeah, you want to you want to protect childhood innocence. Yeah. But we've lost touch with how quickly that's not reality. Because it's not that you're exposed to some tragedy or some trauma and now this darkness is in you. Darkness is part of humanity.
I think we're more traumatized by learning it ourselves. If I had known all of this, but no, I had to go through it all the hard way, right. And then you have all these traumas and things, you're like, oh my God, but maybe if, you grew up hearing it as a casual conversation, you don't have to be all like, the world is shit! Like, you can just be all like, honey, some people... they don't really care about other people, and you just gotta watch out for those ones, and, here's some, ways you can spot them, whatever, and just casual stuff like that. And not demonizing everyone or making everything flowers and puppies. No extreme.
Well, and I think we need to acknowledge, too, that even outside of trauma and external forces, it's a part of being human to have a crisis of conscience or of purpose, or just like those things are human. You're gonna feel depressed. You're gonna feel like, what the fuck am I doing here? You're gonna feel hopeless. You're gonna feel these things, and it's not, you can't shelter someone from that. You can't say, if I control your environment enough and don't let any bad people or things into it, you won't experience that. You'll experience that in a box ball by yourself, because life is fucking weird, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? You don't need an external force to go through that. And because it's not external, you can't protect someone from it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. If your external is stable, work on your internal. If your internal is stable, work on your external. Because it's usually one or the other. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, in any case, I guess what I was getting at is just that I think that we have trained artists to be the messengers of the dark.
Well, yeah, because artists are all emotional and everyone else is like numbers and facts.
Everyone's emotional, though.
Everyone is emotional. I'm just saying job-wise,
Right, yeah, that's why they've got that reputation, though, as being like the starving, dark, tortured artist, is because that's the thing that they offer to the world that the rest of the world doesn't know how to do.
Yeah, we explore the emotions versus services or whatever.
Yeah. We're like, hey, what we offer is a safe place for you to come and feel fucked up.
We're safe here.
Even so, though, and here's the other tangent of how I brought this whole thing up, is that I think that messaging that, hey, this is what your job is as an artist, it's like made us feel obligated to be tortured and in bad circumstances, when really, I'm not sure I anymore believe that good art comes from suffering. I think it can, but I think that someone who's truly in a bad spot, someone who's homeless or who can't eat, like an actual starving artist, I don't think they're putting out their best art, if they're putting out any art. Someone who's truly in crisis is not making art.
I don't know.
Or maybe they are. Some people are diehard and make art no matter fucking what. But
I know, I know a lot of drug addicts who made amazing art. Well, not I know, but famous people that were drug addicts made. But
it can happen. I just don't think it's your job as an artist to be fucked up.
Mm-mm. But at the same time, I don't think all of the media should be flowers and whatever, which apparently books are.
Books are uniquely interested in being happy, which is weird because films do great when they go dark.
Right.
Music does great when it goes dark.
Yes.
Lots of things do well when they go dark.
Romance book? No!
Not having it. We are here to fantasize. Don't fuck it up.
So weird.
You know what, though? That's romance, and that's a very specific thing. People come to that genre for a reason, and it is for the happy ending.
Even just regular books. You tried to shop outside of LGBT and shop your other dark stories, and it's going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And there are certain things that you're not supposed to talk about, and I go out of my way to find those things and to talk about them.
Right, and it's like the only freaking... I don't know any writers outside of, like, Chuck P., that are putting out dark stuff, and it's like, how do you... It's like all short stories if it goes there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, because when I discovered the short story community, because I used to just always be concerned with being a novelist, and when I discovered short stories, I noticed the tone difference. It was pretty shocking, because I was like, oh, that sounds like me. Because when I'm in novel land, I'm like, nothing sounds like me. But when I read short stories, I'm like, oh, it all sounds like me. Not nearly as unique as I thought. I'm just writing the wrong thing. And then I'm like, oh, but wait, I like novels, though. Like, can't I be me? And I think that anything, if it's good enough, can make it. That's the argument, right? Like, there are rules, but if it's good enough, we'll break them. And...
Not quite so in the writing world.
I still think it is. I mean, it's hard for me to think that because that means that I'm not good enough. But,
No, you are definitely good enough. It's just a lot of the reviewers, are like, conflict. I wanted to beat off and rub one out. I didn't want conflict.
It's strange, though. It is a strange contradiction because if you take any writing class, they're going to stress the importance of conflict.
Yeah.
But...
The story doesn't... There is no story without conflict.
Exactly. What are we talking about? Nothing. Yeah. Like, bored, falling asleep without conflict. There has to... And it could be all different types, but there needs to be some type of conflict, whether it's internal or external or physical or, interrelational, whatever it's going to be, there needs to be conflict. So for that to be such an essential component of writing and then have reviewers complain about it is... Like, okay, so... There's no way you can actually have a book without conflict. So really, you're coming from a place where you don't understand writing and complaining. So you saying you don't like conflict doesn't really mean you don't like conflict, because of course you do, or you wouldn't like reading.
They want
you don't like this conflict.
Yeah, they They want very light conflict.
Right.
It's like, oh, I can't be with you because I got a plane to catch and.
You know what I've learned, though, about readers, I think, through reading a lot of reviews? Because it's really hard to do this, reading your own reviews, because you're so biased.
Uh-huh.
You learn a lot more from reading reviews of other books that you've read. So you read a book, and then you read the reviews.
Okay.
That's not your own book, because you can't be objective that way.
Okay.
So you read someone else's book, you sit there, you think about it, you decide what your opinion is. Even if you don't write a review, you just write a review in your head. What would mine sound like? And then you go and you read other people's reviews. And you see, okay, do I still think this reviewer who was awful to me, do I still think they don't know what the fuck they're talking about? Or do I agree with them? Because if I agree with them, then maybe they have a point about mine too.
That's true. You have to have an objective outlook about your own stuff too. Right.
And you can't do that initially because you read their review and you're like, well, that's fucked up because of this, this, and that, So it's like you have to gain that outside perspective of do I try... Because some reviewers truly are bullshit. But you need to come up with, is this reviewer a crap reviewer? Or am I just unable to hear their feedback because it's too personal? And you do that by reading their reviews of other books. So you read a different book, you come up with what you think about it, and then you read theirs. And if theirs rings true, if they make some insightful points, maybe they have some points about yours as well. If you read it and you're like, yeah, no, they suck, then fine, they suck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know...
But their perspectives might be different than yours, too.
True, and never take a review as I suck as a writer. You know, it might be that that's a bad match. That's another thing I learned, is to read what they like to read. What did they like? You know, what did they give 5 stars to? You know, and then you know that's what they're looking for. And if that's just fundamentally not what you do, then fine. They just shouldn't have read your book in the first place. That's not their kind of book.
Right. They like fantasy, but then you wrote some crime book. And like...
and it's like, okay, well, you just don't like crime. That's got nothing to do with me as a writer. That's got to do with this isn't your type of book.
Right.
If they like a bunch of books that are like yours and they didn't like your book, then maybe they have some points. Or, you know, maybe they still don't, but probably they do. And, but yeah, you can weed out a lot of the people that hate your shit that way, because probably they just don't like your genre, or they don't know what they're talking about, you know. And it's pretty rare that someone truly rails on a book and it's right. You're probably not that bad, because then you wouldn't have been published in the first place.
Can we just get like a dark publisher? Can that be a thing?
There are some. They have a hard time though.
How?
Because they can't.
They don't sell?
There's not a big enough readership.
Oh my god. Can we, like, let's start a Facebook group where it's, like, enjoyers of, like, dark stories or whatever, and just start blasting them all there. Because I know it's all the people who enjoyed Fight Club. It's all the people, you know, that are all into that stuff. Why can't we need to get them together. There's tons of them. There's tons.
Well, in Fight Club and Chuck P. in general, Chuck Palahniuk, he's the author of Fight Club, if you don't know. He's kind of an outlier in that he really was extremely successful writing dark things.
Uh-huh.
You know, but that's unusual. So it's like, okay, so what was it about his dark shit that worked? Is it just that he's an exceptional writer?
Well, he is a great writer. He's fucking amazing.
He is amazing. But it's like, you take a dark writer and, you know, it can be great and people won't like it. But something about Chuck Palahniuk resonated on a huge mainstream level.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Fight Club.
Right. I don't understand. I don't understand the publishing industry where they're going to say, you know, we don't want dark shit like Chuck P., but give us more Twilight, which is just the worst written book I've ever read in my freaking life.
I'm going to step in for Twilight here, actually.
I mean, I actually read the entire series and enjoyed it very much.
So did
but
I.
it was the worst writing. Oh, wait. Oh,
No.
No.
50 Shades.
50 Shades. I'm sorry. I messed it up. It was 50 Shades of Grey. What a horrendous book.
Well, and that was, you know, not to hate on her, but, you know...
All the hate. All...
No, she was a self-published author who did an amazing thing, you know, like...
She came out with her own little... I said Twilight because that's what it was. It was a fanfic for Twilight that turned into something else.
Really?
Yeah.
50 Shades was?
50 Shades of Grey originally started as a fan fiction from Twilight.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Here's the thing with Twilight. Like, I'm actually glad you accidentally mentioned that.
Okay.
Because Twilight gets railed on.
By the way, we got 2 minutes left on the camera.
Shit, I gotta go fast. Okay, so Twilight gets railed on a lot for being just a total piece of shit. I enjoyed those books.
Those were great.
You've read the
books were awful.
Yeah.
Or the movies were awful.
The movies
books
were
awful.
Great. But here's the thing. Watching the movie exposed the bad messaging that you can then later see in the book.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
yeah,
you read it and you didn't pick up on that, but you watched it and you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
and then you're
true.
like, well, hold on, that was in the book. Why didn't I get that?
Yeah, that's true.
And that goes back to also, there are very different skills between being like an amazing literary author who's going to get like the Pulitzer and shit, and being a page turner. Those are different skills. Twilight was a page turner.
Yeah.
I guess that's all I got since we're going to run out of time.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, we're out.
Mile High Thoughts.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for another rambly, tangent-esque podcast. We'll try to stay on topic more than the average Joe, but hey, thanks for joining us with Mile High Podcast. The Mile High Thoughts. I'm sorry, the alcohol and the weed is getting to me. I'm Cassandra.
I'm Nicole, and this was Mile High Thoughts.